Good afternoon, good evening. Glenn Stein here with Realty Executives in the Villages and Realty Executives in Ocala. We're going to be talking about the state of the marketplace, as I usually do on Fridays. And actually, a couple of days ago, I did a video on VA buying. I want to talk about that first, and then we're going to get into what's going on, 7-day numbers. We're going to take a look at the trends that we've seen over the last 6-7 months. We're going to take a look at that and what's active on the marketplace. We're going to take a look at that as well, active properties. So I do want to talk about VA. I want to talk about, I had a great conversation with Joe in Pennsylvania, and we talked about VA buying with if you're a vet and you've got a VA certificate and you want to buy, there is a possibility. Something that I mentioned in the last video was, yes, you can buy with a VA loan, a VA mortgage. And one thing that would be helpful is that if you did bring in some money down, that might be helpful. That way the appraisal is not that much of an issue. I think that's a big play. And we could talk more about that if you have some questions about that, buying with a VA loan, VA mortgage. You could just call me at 352-572-3796, 352-572-3796. Also, Buy Sell the Villages is our website. So let's talk about what's going on. First of all, the first 6-7 months. I want to share with you this, where let me blow this up a little bit more so you can actually see it better. I think that's a little bit better there. So let's look at what's happened over, actually looking at the last year. This is basically MLS. This is Villages only. We're going to talk a little bit about Ocala in a minute. If we're looking at Villages only, 2020 August, looking at about 50 million in volume for the whole marketplace, and you can tell this is all 2020, and a little bit of an increase in December. Typically, January closings in the Villages usually a little bit less, as we've spoken about, and of course it climbs up February. Then look at March, record numbers here. It's never been this high, over 80 million, and then now you're looking at April. May took a little bit of a dip, not too surprising. This is very customary here to see this kind of these kind of numbers typically every single year as far as the highest months. This obviously is bigger than normal, but usually it increases from January to February, and then of course March, April, big months. But the amounts are much bigger, as you can tell. May usually a little bit down, and of course, as always. And I've been talking about this. This is a little known fact that typically in the Villages, June or July typically are the number one volume closing months in the marketplace. And you're seeing here, for example, June just being the biggest month, which might be surprising for a lot of people. And I think a lot of sellers sometimes don't want to put their home on the market in the summer thinking, oh, it's not a great time to sell, but actually it really is. July seems to be very brisk. But I think there might be a slight tapering off. So we're going to take a look at that. And I think something that will really help you understand what's going on in the marketplace. We're going to take a look at that in a minute, for sure. So let's look at, I'm going to pull up the 7-day numbers, and I think the 7-day numbers are going to help us understand what exactly is going on in the marketplace right now. And it's also going to tell us where the market is going, which I think is obviously really, really important as we're trying to make some sense as to what's going on. And a lot of people think there's a housing crash, and that's not the indication that I'm getting right at the moment, right? This is vastly different than what we saw back. Actually, the housing crash back in the Great Recession period actually really began in 04, 05, and we really saw some evidence when Katrina hit. We saw a little bit of a turn, and I could tell that there was going to be something big happening in the coming years. But so far we haven't seen that. Doesn't mean it won't happen, but so far we're not seeing it. So the 7-day numbers, you're basically looking at 27 new listings on the market, right? Looking at 27 new listings on the market. And that's pretty much what we've seen over the course of the last couple of weeks. That's pretty much par for the course. That's basically what we're seeing. So that's not anything that's really earth shattering. The numbers are pretty much no surprise there as we're seeing this, right? 27 new listings, Price increases 1, price decreases 12. We saw 7 come back on the market, right? That's something that we saw, 7 come back on the market, which means that there's more properties back on the market. That's 34 new listings when you look at it, 27 new and 7 back on the market. 65 closed in the last 7 days. That's pretty significant for the first couple of weeks, any week in July. That's a pretty good number, 65. Pending properties, 37. That's pretty much what we're seeing there, right? 37 pending properties. That's been pretty consistent. Those are consistent numbers. New listings a little bit greater than what we've seen. Still a little bit of a difference between how many properties are coming on the market versus what's going off the market. But there is a key. There is one key about this that I want to share with you, right? So I'm going to do a little bit of research live here, because this is obviously live. If you ever wonder, I'm doing this live streaming. And we're going to look at, I'm going to pull up the numbers for you live. And I think this is really helpful for everybody. And I think the reason why I'm actually sharing the real live numbers with you, so that way you don't have to take my word for it. It's just something that you can actually see. It's real. These are real numbers. And I think it's really important for everybody to take a look at the real numbers, as opposed to somebody just telling you, this is what the numbers are, and taking somebody's word for it. I think that's important. So I'll do another share screen with you, so that way you can look at what's going on literally right now in the moment. This is going to be Villages only numbers. Okay, so we've got an increase, right? I think we probably saw what, 50, upper 50, lower 50s, upper 40s a couple of weeks ago. So a little bit more property. We've got 75 properties on the market. So I think that's what we're going to see. I think we're going to see a little bit of an increase in inventory, which is good. Right now, and just because I say increase in inventory, I think we have to understand that's not necessarily a negative thing. I think it could be a positive thing for the people that are buying. And I think it's going to be a happy balance of good news for both the seller, because the prices have gone up, and good news for the buyer, because there is some inventory on the marketplace, as you can tell, right? So we've got a varying range of properties, price-wise. And this tells you what we have here, right? Like, so starting lowest property, 157. This is going to be in the Spanish Springs, across from Spanish Springs, actually the historic section, where the Villages got started back in the 90s, and actually the 80s rather. As you can tell, 1984, 1987, actually 70s, looking at something here built in 1976. But most of them were built in the 80s, and some of them in the 90s, as you can tell. This one on Schwartz Boulevard, Silver Oak, these are manufactured homes here. And you're looking at the pricing, 179.9, and then kicks off. Here's the two bedroom, 1 bath in the Lady Lake area. This is a single family property, but a little bit smaller too. And then you're looking at, here's some villas, right? These are villa pricing right now, 227, 228. One of these I'm really familiar with, actually recently sold. There's some other colony patio villas that are here in the mix. They're 240, 245, 249.9, 250. That's basically gives you an idea of the range of properties. Amarillos seem to be, if you're looking at that smaller 3 bedroom, 2 bath, it's going to be more in the 290 plus range, and start seeing 300 plus seems to be the norm, 300 to 325 even for some Amarillos. So that's something to look out for, as pricing does move up, but we're also gaining some inventory, which isn't surprising, which is also a nice happy balance, so buyers can actually find something to move into. So I think that's a real plus. I think that's a real positive as we're taking a look at the marketplace. Something I wanted to do, I wanted to compare, and even if you're not interested in Ocala, I think it's important to compare that it's not just the Villages, right? Like I think there's some real value to looking some other areas, not only where you're coming from, because I know a lot of people that are watching this are going to be from, they're going to be from different areas around the country. I'm aware of that, but also I think it's really important to know that, even if it's vastly different from where you are, because I know some of you, it's vastly different, or it might be very similar. I think even more important than that, I think it's important to see what's going on in areas that are close by to the villages. So you see, it's not just the villages specifically, and it's really much of the country, and it's also much of Florida. Actually, probably all of Florida. We're seeing very similar things. So I'm going to pull this up. This is actually what you're going to be looking at is actually Marion County, which is where Ocala is, Marion County. So we're going to take a look at that. And that way you can see a little bit of a comparison just to see it's kind of similar, not necessarily in pricing, but the metrics and the trends are very similar. So Marion County is a really big it's a really big market, 875 homes for sale. These are all condos, that type of thing. And in fact, I think this is also beneficial from the standpoint of, looking at some other areas that you might have to look into. So if you're getting priced out of the market, or you're thinking, well, I'm just not getting the same value that I thought I was going to get in the villages, there's some other areas in Marion County that could be something that you could look at, and we handle that as well. So what you're looking at now is, I wanted to show you this because this is, now we're looking at Marion County. We're no longer looking at the villages, but there's some similarities here. So obviously the numbers here are going to be different. You can tell the metrics are different. This was like this bar would have been 60 million for the villages, but now 150 million. The volume is different. The number of sales are different because it's a much bigger area. So once again, Marion County, all of Marion County, and by the way, some of the villages will fall into this, but Marion County, it's probably maybe 10% of all the sales that occur would be in the villages for these Marion County numbers. So it's much more than the villages here. So to give you an idea, August 2020, once again, looking at 150, but look at the trend here, goes up, then comes down a little bit. So a little bit of a, December, once again, peak month, just like what we saw in the villages. Then once again, January being the low month, February, a little bit more, March, much bigger, April, much bigger. And then once again, look at this, May comes down, June, bigger than May, bigger than April. These are actually pretty much identical. There may be a slight variance here. And I didn't even look at this ahead of time. Once again, we're looking at this live. This trend here that we're seeing is identical or close to being identical to what we saw in the villages. A little bit of a variation here probably here, but pretty much the same thing where we saw, obviously being affected by COVID and coming out of COVID, increases here, a little bit of slowdown around Thanksgiving, November closings, and then December really picked up. January, which might be a surprise for a lot of people around the country, January not being the biggest month. And the reason being is that, we're looking at December showings, right? December showings, which, you're missing half the month for holiday, and then slowly picking up from there. Then a little bit of a drop off in May, and then June really picking up again. And then July, it's early, right? Like we're only the middle of the month, and most of the closings will happen towards the end of the month. A little bit of interesting, a little bit of an interesting look at the numbers and seeing, the different dynamics of how volume has played into our markets over the last, we're looking at over the last year, over the last 12 months. So that tells you a lot there. So this is what I'm seeing overall, a little bit of an increase in inventory, which is good. I think, for the buyers out there, it might be a very interesting time to actually a positive time to jump back into the game before prices. I think prices are going to continue to go up. I know that's not a popular thing to actually say that, prices are going up. So buy now. If the timing is not right for you, obviously don't buy now. Timing's not right. You're not ready to buy. It's okay. I'm not here to tell you have to buy now. I'm just saying that the market, I think, is going to go up because of the lack of inventory. If it increases by fourfold, then that would be a different horse and a different story. And of course, then we're seeing definitely a plateau. But right now, based on the numbers, you're looking at 60, 70 properties that are closing every single week. So that gives us, over 200, looking at over 200 properties per month are selling here in the villages. That's basically what our numbers are. That tells me with the number of properties that are on the market, with about 70 something properties on the market, that tells me that we're looking at about a week and a half worth supply of homes, meaning that if no other homes came on the market, how long would it take for all the homes to actually be sold and have it be zero? So when you look at those metrics, you're looking at, it would take basically 1.5 weeks of time for all the homes to sell. And I think that's a true indication as to how hot a market is. So that's a to pick out a Spanish term, en fuego, right? Like the market is definitely on fire. And I'll tell you that a lot of the outside businesses are having an issue keeping up. So it's not just real estate. A lot of the title and mortgage companies are having an issue. So have some patience with them. That's a big theme I'm working on with many of my agents right now. And, I can't control what the market does and what customers do, but try to have as much patience as possible, because people are definitely overworked right now, for sure. I think that's a true thing. So if you have questions about the marketplace, let me know. You can find me here. You can put it in YouTube. Be happy to. I love when people are asking questions here. It's absolutely fabulous. Usually it takes me a little bit of time. Usually within 24 hours, I try to get back to responses. Several of you have done that. And if you haven't done so, please subscribe. That would be fabulous. It would mean a lot to me if you would subscribe. So with that, that's what I have for you. Happy Friday. Hope everybody has a safe weekend. And of course, if you have questions, my heart is always to assist. It's not to push. It's not to pressure. I don't think that's what our job is as the broker here in being real estate. Just let me know if you need any help. So with that, happy Friday, everybody. Take care.